Hello, this is Daniel Moreno. I'm doing a lesson plan for my class. It's week 7 introduction planning and strategies for ELSE 6073 at Arkansas State University. This is for grade level 5, inclusion and general education. It can be moderate. It can be modded for or altered for kids with special needs. The topic is how the water cycle helps things grow. Um, the subject is about plants, life science, earth science, and physical science, which is a requirement for 5th grade. The goal and specific observable objectives for this lesson plan is learning how to observe, discuss how the water cycle helps grow plants grow. The students will discuss the different strategies of the water cycle. The students will observe how the water cycle works. The students will get into smaller groups and they will eventually plant one plant per group. They will also be learning about different features of the earth. This is to help students understand their natural environment and what's around them and help them understand physics and how things work. The central vocabulary is going to be water cycle, evaporation, condensation, rain, pond, puddles, ocean, cloud, transpiration, heat, precipitation, cold, atmosphere, sun, earth, streams, rivers, and percolation. Percolation. The assessment during the activity, you're going to discuss with the students the different features of the earth, and you're going to talk to them about the water cycle. You should be asking them questions while you talk to them. This will help them to think about what you're talking about as you're talking about it, so they're not just wandering off and zoning out. This will also help them hear the opinions of other classmates or their peers, because maybe that child isn't thinking a certain way and another person thinks a different way, and it helps open their mind to different ways of thinking. So you want to be asking them questions during the entire time that you're going over this. If you're in a special needs classroom and you do have paraprofessionals or teaching assistants, they should be walking around and asking the students questions as well while you're teaching, or helping them with anything that they need help with. But you're going to start by going over the different features of the earth, like mountains, clouds, trees, streams, rivers, ponds, lakes, things like that. Just their natural environment, things that are always around them. That way, they get some kind of personal connection to the material that you're going over. While or after you go over the discussion of the earth features and the features of the things around them, you're going to want to ask them questions again and go over those specific details, like quickly go over them. You want to go over any kind of vocabulary that you're going to be using in future lessons that are going to be going over this kind of material. And you're going to do that rather rapidly. Just give them a refresher at the end of it, so that it just refreshes exactly what you've been going over, especially if it's been for a longer period of time. Because some students, it's normally a 15-minute period per section. This is a 3-section activity, but because you're going to be going over features and you're going to be going over the water cycle, and then you're going to be planting a plant. But it's about 15 minutes per section. And that, if it's special needs, you may need a little bit extra time, because sometimes they need a little bit more time to process what's going on. So at the end, you want to do a refresher just in case they forgot some of the terminology. But after you do that, you're going to go over the water cycle. You're going to go over transportation, how the water moves from, like, say, over the ocean, over dry land, and then drops into dry land. And then you're going to talk about how it moves along the earth back to the ocean and then eventually evaporates back into the sky, which will complete the full cycle. So you want to talk about evaporation, transpiration, which is like where plants put off oxygen and it goes into the atmosphere for everybody to breathe. Then you're going to go into how the water goes in through the earth. It's like a filter. You could even have a filter there, or you could show them like dirt in a glass, and then pour water over it so they can see how it soaks into the dirt and goes down and collects at the bottom. Any kind of visuals will really help. The one that I always thought would probably be cool is the condensation part, where how it collects. So easy ways to do it. I have examples on the screen. You can get a jar, you put a little bit of water in it, just a teaspoon at the bottom will do. And if you stick it in your windowsill, especially if you're in like a cool area and there's sun, you stick it in the sun, and if the jar is cold, from being inside, then it'll start forming condensation on the outside if it has a top on it. If it doesn't have a top on it, the water will evaporate and come out of the jar. So if you put one jar up there with a lid and one jar without a lid, then by the end of the day, some of the water will be gone. And then they can physically see that the water disappeared throughout the day. And that's another way for it to do a physical thing, so it connects to them personally. Because that's what you want to do. You want them to connect the learning personally so that they get the most out of it. After you go over the different types of the different cycles, the water cycle. After you go over precipitation, which is just rain, and you want to use simple terms depending on the students that you have. So you want to adjust your terminology to the students. So you can just talk about rain, heat, evaporation, and then condensation. Just say that it collects in the sky, and then goes down to the ground and flows, because they see it all the time when it rains. They see the water moving, so it really helps them to connect with it when you talk about it in a personal way, or change the terminology for them so they understand it better. You should also contact parents too, because you never know if they have any kind of cultural differences or anything. Make sure that you're not violating any kind of parent's trust with cultural differences. See what their student likes, see what interests them, and maybe take something that interests them and use that as a teaching tool. The materials you're going to need is going to be a flower pot, one for every group or student. I'd recommend small groups, because you don't want to, if you have 25 students, you don't want to buy 25 flower pots. So you just do groups of 3 or 4 or 5, however many students you think that you would need to do it for, depending on disabilities and general education or something like that. You will want to have a flower pot depending on their needs. So if it's special education students and maybe they have some physical disabilities, then maybe they can't hold it, or they can't personally put the item inside there. You at least want them to touch it so they get that kinesthetic learning, so they can feel it. It's something that will help them understand what dirt feels like. And then if it's near them, they can smell it, so it helps them understand what a plant smells like. Or you can do seeds as well. Seeds are really cheap. But if you do seeds, then you might want to keep one of the plants so that they can see it grow over time, which is another way to make it connect with them, because they're seeing it. Maybe you have them water it. If you have some students, that you need to give them some kind of help or role, you can have them water it. But you're going to need one flower pot per group, You're going to need a bag of seeds, or you're going to need enough plants to fill the flower pots. You're going to need any kind of gardening tools. If you plan on doing this outside, you're going to want to have some kind of tool to dig. Um, then you're going to need 2 jars, one with a lid, one without a lid for the condensation. You're going to need water so you can put on the plants, and water so you can put in the jar. You're going to need a pencil and paper for each student, because they're going to need to do a worksheet where they label the different parts of the water cycle. I have an example on the screen. What you can do with that, though, is if it's children who don't quite comprehend the bigger words, or some like condensation, sublimation, precipitation, if those words are too big for them, and you're using smaller words like just rain or gathering together, or it heats up and disappears, if you're just using just simpler terms, you can use a different type of worksheet, like one with like just maybe 4 things for them to fill in, rather than 8 to 10. Just adjust it to their development, their developmental needs. But you're going to need a worksheet for them to fill out. That way you can make sure that they've actually retained the information that you've actually taught them during this period of time. You're going to need a whiteboard and a projector so you can show them the picture of these things while you're talking about it. And you're going to need a computer with access to the internet. While the teacher's going over all these different things, the paraprofessionals should definitely be walking around and talking to the students, see what they need help with, and asking them questions, or even open-ended questions, and getting their opinions, and just letting them, voice what they're thinking, and let the other students hear it, so they can see how other students are thinking as well. At the end of this, whenever you do start planting stuff, you need to be sure that whenever you dig the holes, that the holes are 1 to 2 inches out from the plant or the seed. And the seed, if you're planting a seed, it needs to be 6 inches down if you want it to grow properly. So you want to plant it 6 inches down with a 2-inch gap on either side. So probably a 4-inch hole, and then you want to dig 6 inches down. If it's a regular plant, like a small plant, you want to rough up the you want to pull it out of its pot. You want to rough it up a little bit, make it loose so the roots aren't compacted. And then you stick it in the hole, and you want to make sure there's 2 inches around the entire hole. And the soil at the very bottom, you want to put a little bit in there before you put the plant in there, because you want the soil underneath the plant to be loose, so that it has room for the roots to grab onto something. And then with the dirt, once you put it on and around, you fill in the gap. You want that to be loose. You don't want to pack that tightly. You want the roots to have enough room to grow outwards, and you want the soil to be able to absorb water. If it's compacted, it won't absorb, and the roots won't be able to extend themselves out as easily. The plant could still become root bound that way. Like I said before, the earth portion of it, with the description of the what is it? The description of the features around you, like the mountains, lakes, streams, stuff like that. Anything that's in the natural area that they can see, that should take about 15 minutes. After you do that, you want to go to the water cycle. That takes about another 15 minutes. And planting the plants doesn't really take that long. It can take longer depending on the needs of the students, but it should normally only take maybe 10 minutes to go over it, because you want to be showing students all these things while you're going over it, because you want to show them through direct instruction how they're supposed to do things, especially with planting the plants, and explain to them the root bounding, and how they need to dig the 2 inches, and then you need to show them how to do it, and how to plant the actual plant or the seed. And that about covers the lesson plan. Thank you. Have a good day.